It's finally happening. The Singapore-Hong Kong air travel bubble is set to take off on May 26, 6 months later than planned.
Recovery efforts underway to resurface the sunken Indonesian submarine. We get an update from the ground.
And two Asian women making history at the Oscars, Chloe Zhao for directing and Yoon Yoo-jung for acting.
Welcome to The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quaid.
And I'm Harianto Diman. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Two locally transmitted cases were among the 45 new COVID-19 infections confirmed today. One case was in the community and the other in a migrant worker dormitory.
The remaining 43 cases were imported, including 13 Singapore citizens or PRs. Now, more details will be released tonight.
Well, the Singapore-Hong Kong air travel bubble has a new date, May the 26th, a month from today.
This comes 6 months after its initial planned launch. Now, back then, this quarantine-free arrangement was deferred by both parties due to Hong Kong's worsening COVID-19 situation.
As you know, in November last year, on the 22nd, we put off the launch of the bubble because of cases spiking in Hong Kong. So for 5 months, we have not given up on the air travel bubble. It's a very important initiative. And in these 5 months, a few important things have happened. Most important is that Hong Kong has very successfully controlled their pandemic situation. I'm very happy for them. So as of now, every day they have a very small handful of community cases, sometimes 2, 3, 1, some days 0. So on the whole, the risk profile of Hong Kong and Singapore, the two cities, are now largely similar.
Well, Mr. Ong also said this arrangement will have stricter rules. Travellers must have been in either Singapore or Hong Kong in the last 14 days prior to departure. And this is on top of any time spent under stay-home notice or quarantine. And as agreed under the original deal, travellers from both sides must test negative for COVID-19 before they can board the bubble flights.
For those going to Hong Kong, you must also install Hong Kong's Leave Home Safe mobile app. And for outbound Hong Kong passport holders to Singapore, you must be fully vaccinated. This vaccination requirement, though, will not apply to Singapore citizens and others who don't hold Hong Kong travel documents.
The bubble will be suspended if the 7-day moving average of unlinked community cases in either country goes above 5.
Now, the bubble will start cautiously. These are the flights: Singapore Airlines in blue, Cathay Pacific in red. And for the first 2 weeks, from May 26th to June 7th, both airlines will operate one flight a day in each direction, capped at 200 passengers on each flight. The numbers will be reviewed thereafter.
From June the 9th, SIA will start operating daily flights between the two countries, while Cathay Pacific will have daily return flights from June 10th.
News editor Karamjit Kaur joins us now. Now, she's spearheading the Straits Times' COVID-19 coverage. Welcome back, Karamjit. What are the key differences between this latest travel bubble and the initial agreements?
Hi, Harianto. Hi, Olivia. You've already mentioned some of the tighter requirements for the Singapore-Hong Kong air travel bubble. For me, what's interesting is to look at what are the reasons for these tighter requirements. And clearly, it's got to do with this realization that one, the situation is and will continue to be very dynamic in terms of the number of COVID-19 cases, both in Singapore, Hong Kong, and to some extent in other countries as well, and also the need to be cautious. So if you look at some of the requirements, for example, the fact that travelers must have been in either Singapore or Hong Kong for 14 days before they can get onto this air travel bubble, and also the new app that they have to download and all that. Travelers from Hong Kong will have to be inoculated before they can come. All this really, stems from a realization that there is a need to be cautious. And very interesting, during the doorstop, Minister Ong, said that while the guidelines are very clear in terms of when the travel bubble will be suspended, so if the number of cases, unlinked cases, over moving average over 7 days, if it's higher than 5, it will be suspended. But interesting point that he made, that resumption is not going to be so straightforward. He said that there will be a complicated 3-tier sort of framework that will be put in place before a decision is made to resume. So he actually put it very nicely when he said it'll be easier to suspend, harder to resume. So I think that really in a nutshell encapsulates the whole, a bit of a different thinking this time round as far as the Singapore-Hong Kong air travel bubble is concerned.
Right. Well, Karam, beyond the tighter requirements that Mr. Ong mentioned, are there any further measures to minimize transmission risks?
So I think one is the airlines that will be involved in this. Travelers, on the Singapore-Hong Kong air travel bubble will only be able to fly designated carriers, and that's essentially Singapore Airlines from here and Cathay Pacific for Hong Kong. So that it's in itself a measure to ensure that the risk are mitigated. And I think apart from that, it really travelers just have to continue to do the right thing, right? So in the same way that we put on our masks here and we observe all this hygiene habits, wash your hands and all that. It's the same thing that needs to be done when you are in Hong Kong, or when people from Hong Kong come here. I think to some extent the danger, if I may use that word, is that when people go on holiday, they sort of become a bit relaxed. I think that is one thing that we don't want to see happen. So as and when this travel bubble launches, and we hope that it will, I think that's something that all travelers should remind themselves of constantly.
We just checked earlier and we saw that bubble tickets to Hong Kong on Singapore Airlines are about $700 for a return flight. Like what we saw when the bubble was first announced back in November, do you foresee people this time around snapping up the tickets?
For sure, I certainly expect that ticket prices will go up. We've talked many times about the pent-up demand for travel in Singapore. People really want to, go out there and just, go on a holiday. So I'm really quite sure that the, prices will go up. And, despite the fact that, again, during the doorstop, Minister Ong said that, we should be prepared for start, stop, when he explained that, yes, the plan is to launch this on May the 26th, but we will have to watch and see what happens. And even if it is launched, if the situation becomes worse, then we will have to go into this what he calls the start-stop mode. Having said that, I don't think that will discourage people from wanting to get onto this flight. So I do expect that demand will be strong. And in fact, after the announcement was made, Singapore Airlines issued a release, and they've already announced plans for a month-long special menu, in-flight menu, and there'll be carrot cake and nasi lemak, for the flight out from Singapore, and from Hong Kong coming in. They're talking about offering dim sum and all that. So certainly, that there will be some excitement and anticipation, over this bubble. And I don't think this is the last that we will see, hopefully. I mean, again, when asked at the doorstop, whether Singapore was in discussions with other countries, he talked about how, we're always open to having similar arrangements with safe countries. And he mentioned a few countries, specifically New Zealand, Australia, China, Brunei, Taiwan as well. So I guess the next 1 month we'll have to wait and see what happens. And hopefully that flight will take off on May the 26th.
Well, Karam, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. That was Karamjit Kaur, news editor at the Straits Times. In other local news, officers appointed by the Manpower Ministry will be making house visits to check in on domestic helpers after a recent spate of high-profile cases of maid abuse. The aim is to visit 200 homes a month, and during such a visit, not only will these officers check on the maids' living and working conditions, they will also highlight a safe working environment and the channels where maids can get help if needed. Officers are also trained to look out for non-verbal cues that could point to violations.
A scam where customers receive an SMS claiming that their bank accounts have been suspended has resurfaced. These messages would appear in the same thread as the official messages from local banks and direct customers to call the phone number for assistance. Swindlers impersonating bank staff would then answer and ask victims for their NRIC and credit card details. After that, victims would discover that unauthorized transactions were made from their bank accounts. Police advise customers to verify any suspicious message or call by contacting the hotline on the bank's website. Customers should also not disclose their banking details and one-time password to anyone.
MediaCorp is terminating its contract with actor Shane Powell for keeping them in the dark about his drink driving charge. In a statement today, MediaCorp clarified that they were not aware of the charge before it was reported last Thursday. Also in the statement, Powell didn't inform the artist's management team about the incident that took place last September. While he's out of a contract, he's still required to complete outstanding work until May the 4th.
Looking overseas, now that the sunken Indonesian submarine has been located, recovery efforts are underway to bring the wreckage back to the surface.
Authorities said yesterday that it was found cracked into 3 parts on the seabed. All 53 on board are dead. Our Indonesia correspondent with an update.
This accident has reminded us of the weak procurement system that military is doing. The problem has been transparency and accountability. You know, the procurement of military equipment and weaponry has not been transparent or accountable because military has not been really a subject of state audit. Even me as a reporter, when I cover parliament hearings, you know, we cover hearings, parliament, lawmakers with government ministries, agencies. They are normally open to public and to press coverage. But for military, they're usually a closed door. For the reason they cited was sensitivity. But this, when they talk about budget, it's less public scrutiny. So, you know, there have been talks that procurement of military equipment have seen markup amounting to not only 30–50%, but talking about more than 100%. So what happened was there is tendency that the military like to procure used equipment because there is no standard pricing when you buy used procurement rather than you buy new equipment. So this again, in the media reports, we have seen increasing costs to increase transparency and accountability for military equipment and weaponry.
Elsewhere, India's COVID-19 infections hit a record peak for a 5th straight day, with close to 353,000 cases in the past 24 hours. On Sunday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged all citizens to be vaccinated and to exercise caution. Meanwhile, other nations, including the US, Britain and Germany, have pledged to send urgent medical aid like oxygen and protective gear.
At Hollywood's biggest night, Nomadland picked up the Best Picture award at the Oscars, and its director, Beijing-born Chloe Zhao, also became the first non-Caucasian to win Best Director and just the 2nd woman to get the award.
This is for anyone who has the faith and the courage to hold on to the goodness in themselves and to hold on to the goodness in each other, no matter how difficult it is to do that. And this is for you. You inspire me to keep going. Thank you. Thank you.
Out of the 20 acting nominations, 9 went to people of color and 2 ended up taking top honors. South Korean veteran Yoon Yoo-jong won Best Supporting Actress for her role in Minari. She's the first Korean performer to win an acting Oscar and only the second Asian woman.
Daniel Kaluuya was recognized as Best Supporting Actor for playing the Black Panther leader Fred Hampton in Judas and the Black Messiah.
Best Actor went to Anthony Hopkins and Frances McDormand won her third Best Actress award.
Our colleague at Life, journalist Jan Lee, is here with her take. Jan is also a presenter for Pop Vultures, the Straits Times' pop culture podcast. Welcome, Jan. So, Chloe Zhao winning Best Director, Yoon Yoo-jong Best Supporting Actress. They're among a relatively, shall we say, multiracial list of Oscar winners this year. Are you sensing a long-term shift in terms of diverse representation at the Oscars?
I am not that optimistic. I think Hollywood is still an industry that generally rewards cisgender white guys, but I am cautiously hopeful, I think, because there are rules in place, there's a greater push for diversity, there were new rules implemented for the Academy. So clearly they want to do more, right? To include people of more races, more gender, more gender identities and so on. And I think it's possible, but it does come from the ground up, right? It's not just the awards. Like movies need to hire people on screen and behind the scenes who are people of color, who are women, who are, of different gender identities and so on and so forth. And then they have the chance to win Oscars. And even before all of that, studios must be willing to invest in stories that are written by people who are not white, people who are willing to bring a different perspective to the table.
So Jen, great wins aside, there are always upsets at these kind of awards. What were the big ones this year?
Okay, I think we have to address the elephant in the room, which is that Anthony Hopkins took Best Actor. This is not, I would say it didn't come out of nowhere because he did win the BAFTA for Best Actor. But previously, people really thought this was a lock for Chadwick Boseman because, very tragically, he died last year and this is his last chance ever at an Oscar. So people were, and it's a good performance as well in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So people were really expecting Chadwick Boseman to win the Oscar. And you can tell the team that produced the Oscar show this year thought so as well. Because usually, right, what happens is you put Best Picture as the last award presented. That's generally just how it goes. This year was very different. Best Picture was the third last, and then was Best Actress and Best Actor was saved for the last. So people watching the show, film critics were thinking oh, are they hoping for a big Chadwick Boseman win? And then it would be a really emotional moment and it would make for a great fitting end to the Oscars. But Anthony Hopkins won. The man, the legend, is 83 years old. So he did not go to the Oscars. I think he's apparently holidaying in Wales. So it just ended on Joaquin Phoenix saying, "We accept this award on Anthony Hopkins' behalf." And then the show ended. So it was very abrupt. But, I would say I've watched The Father, which Anthony Hopkins won for, and it is a phenomenal performance. It is very, very good. It is terrifying. It shows you how agonizing dementia really is. And the entire film is centered on Anthony Hopkins' performance, and it's so good. So I wouldn't say that he didn't deserve it, but I would say that it is a bit of an odd moment that it ended on the Best Actor win instead of the Best Picture win. It made for a very awkward end to the awards show.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's usually the case, right? Best Picture, caps off the entire show. So indeed, it does sound like a very anticlimactic ending to the ceremony. But on the ceremony as a whole, most nominees and presenters had to attend in person, but the whole thing was still very much socially distant. So Jan, did the Oscars this year still boast its usual, pomp and circumstance?
I think it is a bit, a bit mellow this year because of, COVID restrictions. So there weren't, there wasn't a lot of press. Usually there's huge numbers of reporters, a lot of journalists lining up on the red carpet, hoping to talk to someone. There's a lot of presenters, a lot of celebrities, but Clearly, this year it had to be dialed down a little bit, but I do think the fashion was really on point this year because I think like all the celebrities themselves were also like really starved for like a great red carpet moment. So they really brought out their like A game. So you see like Amanda Seyfried in like this beautiful Giorgio Armani privé gown, and then you see Regina King, who for some reason was not nominated for Best Director, but Regina King was in this gorgeous custom-made Louis Vuitton. So the fashion was very, very much on point, and I enjoyed that very much. And I do think that it is still a very historic Oscars because, as you know, we can tell Chloe Zhao won Best Director, only the second woman to ever win the category, which is a little bit insane. And then, of course, the first South Korean actress to ever win an acting award at the Oscars, Yoon Jong, right, who was hilarious with her speech. So I think there was still a lot of good moments out of the show.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for that updates. We've been speaking with journalist Jan Lee on the Oscars, which saw a milestone in Asian representation.
Well, those are our top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Harianto Diman with Olivia Kwe. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.